If you've ever worked nights, you know how strange it gets. The silence stretches, shadows move where they shouldn't, and you start to wonder if you're the only living thing awake. But what if the night itself wasn't empty? What if it was watching you, waiting for you to make one wrong move? I've worked the graveyard shift at a gas station long enough to know there are things no one talks about. Things that don't make it into the training manual. I never wanted to share this, not because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, but because I'm afraid you might. There are rules they don't put in the employee handbook. Rules that kept me alive. Break them, and you won't last until sunrise. And it all starts like any other night. The hum of fluorescent lights, an empty parking lot, and me behind the counter, pretending everything was normal. Asterisk. The station itself wasn't much to look at. Just a squat concrete box crouched off the highway, buzzing under lights that never quite decided if they wanted to stay on. The smell of gasoline clung to everything. The air, my clothes, even the cheap coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. Behind the counter, the laminate was peeling, sticky in places where years of spilled soda had welded into the surface. Most nights were the same. I'd wipe down the greasy register, count the same stack of crumpled bills, and stare out at a parking lot so empty it felt like a stage set, waiting for actors who never showed. Sometimes a moth would hurl itself against the glass, and I'd actually be grateful for the company. That's the trick of the night shift tit. Convinces you that world has forgotten about you. Hours blur together until you stop checking the clock. Loneliness becomes routine, and boredom feels safer than excitement. Some nights, nothing happens. Other nights, I wish nothing did. It was one of those nights, when the air felt heavier than usual, that I saw the first customer pull in. And something about him told me the shift wasn't going to stay ordinary. Asterisk. The first guy shuffled in like he'd been pulled straight out of a black and white photo. His clothes were too neat, pressed in a way nobody bothers with anymore. He laid a crumpled bill on the counter, and when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't even legal tender any more faded ink, a design that went out decades ago. He didn't seem to notice. He just smiled and said, "Pump 3. No, wait. Pump 13. There is no pump 13. Then there was the woman. She didn't buy anything. She just stood at the back of the store, hands clasped around her purse, eyes locked on me. I tried to look busy, wiping down the counter, pretending not to notice. But every time I glanced up, she was still staring, unblinking, like a photograph that refused to fade. And the trucker. I watched him fill up, watched him walk in, heard his boots thud against the tile. He bought jerky, nodded once, and stepped outside. I swear I saw him head toward his rig. But when I looked up again, the lot was empty. No truck, no taillights, nothing. I stopped asking questions after my first week, but the customers weren't the worst part. It was the rules. Asterisk in the back office, taped crookedly to the wall, was a yellowing sheet of paper that no manager ever mentioned. No signature, no letterhead, just a list. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank left by the last poor bastard who worked nights. But after a week, I realized it was the only thing keeping me alive. The rules looked simple enough. Never look directly into the bathroom mirror after 3:15 a.m. If a car pulls up with its headlights off, don't acknowledge it. Always restock the cooler before midnight. Something comes through if you don't. There were others too. Rules I wish I could forget. I won't tell you all of them. Some are better left unsaid, because once you know them, you can't unknow them. At first glance, they read like urban legends, the kind of campfire nonsense you'd laugh off. But when you're standing alone at 3 a.m., with the hum of the lights vibrating in your skull and shadows stretching longer than they should, the rules stop feeling optional. They start feeling like commandments. And I'll be honest, with why broke one once, just one, and I barely made it through the night. The first time I slipped up, I learned why the rules matter. Asterisk, it was a Thursday night when I slipped. I'd been half asleep on my feet, more focused on killing time than following the damn list. By the time I glanced at the clock, the cooler was still empty, and the glowing red digits had just flipped past 12:03. At first, nothing happened. Just the same stale air, the same buzz of the fluorescents. But then the silence thickened, like the sound had been sucked out of the room. The lights flickered once, twice, and held a dim, sickly glow. That's when I smelled a trot, sweet and heavy, like meat left too long in the sun. A scraping noise echoed from the back of the store, slow, uneven, like something dragging itself along the linoleum. I ducked behind the counter, my heart slamming against my ribs, and peered through the slats of the candy rack. It came into view, a figure hunched and twitching, arms too long, joints bending wrong. Its skin looked stretched thin, pale as wax, peeling in strips as it shuffled closer. The scraping grew louder, its head tilted, jerking with broken movements, as if searching. Then it stopped, right on the other side of the counter. I held my breath, praying it wouldn't notice me, and then it leaned close, so close I could hear the wet rattle of its breath, and whispered my name. Asterisk, the next morning, when the sun finally bled through the blinds, and I stumbled out, pale and shaking, I ran into Carl, the day shift guy. He was older, the kind of lifer who'd been behind the counter longer than anyone could remember. He took one look at me, saw the dark circles under my eyes, and just sighed. "You forgot to stock the cooler, didn't you?" He muttered, like it wasn't even a question. I asked him how he knew, but he only shook his head. "We don't stay long on night shift," he said quietly. "Not if we want to live. Some of us." Didn't figure that out fast enough. I pressed him for answers, desperate for some kind of explanation. All he gave me was a weary glance, a forced half-smile. "You'll see for yourself," he said. I didn't believe him until I saw the man at the window. Asterisk. It was around 3 in the morning when I noticed him. A man standing just beyond the glass doors, hands at his sides, head tilted like he was studying me. No car pulled up, no footsteps across the gravel. He was simply there, as though he'd grown out of the darkness. At first I told myself he was just another drifter, but the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. His smile was stretched too wide, like it had been painted on. His eyes, empty, yet fixed on me, with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I blinked, just once, and suddenly he wasn't outside anymore. He was standing in the middle of the store, that same impossible smile splitting his face. "You shouldn't be able to see me," he said softly, voice like glass grinding against stone. My gaze caught his reflection in the cooler door, and the memory of the rule slammed into me. Never look directly into reflective surfaces after 3:15. I dropped my eyes to the sticky tile, refusing to meet either version of him. When I finally dared to look up again, the man and his reflection were gone. Asterisk, after a while, I realized these encounters weren't random. They were patterns. Employees before me had vanished without notice. Their names stayed on the schedule for weeks, like management didn't even bother erasing them. The security tapes, they never lasted more than a night. I'd watch them back, trying to prove to myself I wasn't losing it. But the footage would glitch, blur, then wipe itself clean by morning. And the customers, some of them came back again and again. Same clothes, same faces, same stiff movements, like a reel stuck on loop. They didn't age, didn't change, just replayed themselves in different orders. I've started to wonder if the gas station isn't really a gas station at all, but some kind of doorway, a gateway where rules keep the cracks from splitting wide open. There are things even I haven't seen yet, but I've heard them. Asterisk, I'd like to tell you I quit, that I walked out, never looked back, and left the gas station rotting behind me. But that's not the truth. I still work there. Not because I want to, God knows I don't, but because I can't leave. Every time I try, something happens. My car won't start. Roads bend back toward the lot. It's like the place won't let me go. And maybe I've already broken another rule just by telling you this. The list never said anything about sharing, but I can feel it like eyes on the back of my neck as I speak. If this uploads and you're watching, don't stop at the station on Route 6 tonight. I think they know I've told you, and if they do, they'll be coming for both of us. Asterisk, if you've ever worked nights, you know the darkness has its own rules. Maybe you've seen things to shadows where they shouldn't be. People who don't feel quite human. Tell me in the comments what you think the rules mean. Did I break one just by speaking? Or are there worse rules waiting that I haven't learned yet? Hit like if you want me to keep sharing. The more I talk, the more dangerous it gets. But maybe that's the only way to survive. There are other rules I haven't shared yet. Maybe next time.